Okay, so now that we've identified there's an obvious gap that occurred on earnings, this one's looking good. Okay, so now that we've looked down and reduced our field of vision, we can reduce it further because, again, after you look down, you just look at the MACD and what it's doing on that earnings day. And you want to look for the start of the first downtrend that matches this gap. And it just so happens that this happened to be the same day that the downtrend started. And I'm going to get to that later. And this is why I determined DCT was going to gap up today, like for sure. I'll show you that in a minute. But what I want you to pay attention to is this shape first and foremost. It is the most important shape I want you to identify in this strategy because this tells you when to buy on a call play. We'll go over puts in another video, but this is a call buying signal. This shape, it looks, I mean, I think of it like the genie from Aladdin where he lives. I don't know, I forget what it's called. But yeah. So just follow along with the next few set of slides. I'm going to show you where to buy and what to do and when to sell, just off the MACD alone. So we're going to reduce our field of vision even further now to see if this pattern is there after we've identified the aforementioned things. And I really think the robot explained it spot on. I think I type better than I talk. Anyways, let's go. So we reduced it further to just the MACD. So that's the full picture. We just cut out that bottom left portion right here. So whenever this shape occurs, like this shape here, same shape right here. This is a different stock. I'm going to go back to DTC in a second, but this is a different stock, same shape. Anytime you see this shape, you can cut off everything else, cut it down to this size, and the buy zone for this is when you start to see this yellow line, or whatever color yours is, whichever one's underneath. That's whenever it starts to curl, that's when you want to buy, somewhere in this zone. Because after gaps, at some point, this starts curling every single time, which is typically 90% of the time going to flatten out and then rise back up. So this is your buy zone here. For the animation, sorry about the Discord sounds, I always forget to turn that off. Let's do that right now. So anyways, that's where you buy. Next, your money starts growing. Because again, you just caught the signal for the reversal that's upcoming. And remember, this is algorithm, so this is likely why these low volume, illiquid, and there was like no comments on Webull today about this. This is likely why this is happening in such a predictable pattern, because again, algorithms work with patterns, they work off of time patterns. That's detectable in some tickers, which happen to be the ones we're playing. So anyways, that's when you buy this shape here. Whenever it starts to curl, like whenever you see it like really about like flatten out, you almost want to get it when it's just horizontal. That's when you would buy. And then very soon, as long as you're not playing weeklies, that's why I like to get a few weeks out, this is when you earn your money. Whee! That gets me every time. Oh man. Okay, so that's when you buy. So when do you sell? This is where it gets autistic as fuck. So what we're going to do is that bottom left portion that I cut out of the MACD, this one right here, what we're going to do is I'm going to flip this upside down, and then I'm going to flip it horizontally. You literally sell the same place you bought. You see how it starts to flatten out on the top? The same thing's happening here. This is the same thing. It's the same pattern. Because it's an algorithm. Flip it back over. You sell at the same place you bought. That's literally it for all of these. It's the same way. You can go, I want you to practice, go look. It's nuts. So let's get back to DCT. How did I know it was going to flip? So let me show you something on this first chart here. Do you see how right here it goes red, green, red. There's one day, and that day happened to be earnings, that it flipped green only to gap down in after hours. Well, look what happened today. Let's go to the actual chart. That's Kirk. Let's look at Kirk for a second. So you see how Kirk, it didn't necessarily gap at the start of the trend, but it still gapped during that shape, right? So you're already in Kirk. You can already see that shape starting to curve a little bit. So you know you're in a good spot to maybe get in soon. And then if, Kirk, that's a lot of green days to make money. You know what I mean? And then it's not even looking like it's ready to sell yet, because remember that shape we're looking for? It hasn't even started to curl over the top. So it's just very, very simple pattern recognition. But anyways, let's go back to DCT now, actually. Keep it the same chart, because it was different. But you see how this one didn't do that? It wasn't green, red, green on earnings. It's a different pattern, right? So you go to DCT, a different pattern, different buy period. They're not all going to be the same as far as buying and selling. But if we go here, so I want you to look at something. On put plays, this is what you would do on a put play, right? In a normal situation that wasn't DCT that's weird. This would be your put play. So how did I know it was going to be an up play when I literally went against my own logic here? Let's see. Let's get the RSI up. Because remember, the logic is buy broken RSIs. And if I'm trying to catch a gap, this one right here would be the perfect setup to catch a gap down. But it gapped up. Why did it gap up? Sure, there was a previous gap, but you can't always bet on only the sole reason being the gap alone that it has to fill previously. So what was it? Well, let's go back to this MACD. Red, green, red, right? Looks like a put play. But hold on a second. Red, green, red. And then you start to look. What happened before the earnings, the signal before? We had a green uptrend into a downtrend gap. Or a gap into a downtrend. Downtrend into an uptrend to a down gap. What do you notice about this? Uptrend into a downtrend into an up gap? That's exactly what happened. Everything happened exactly the opposite of what happened this time. Look at this. Look at the symmetry. Look at this. This is the shit that I'm looking for. You see how symmetrical that is? That is an algorithm. And you can play off of it. And that's literally all this is. So if you think I'm some genius, I'm a fucking retard. I'm just showing you how and what I've been doing with my time this whole year. And it's been researching, sure. Learning shit, sure. But it's also learning how to recognize things that, aren't normal. Because the fact, I still cannot believe the fact I went all in on this. The fact that I called it based on this shit, I think could be expanded upon significantly.